I requested that my teacher not partner me with my deadbeat father's daughter. So, my dad bailed on my mom when she was pregnant with me. I'm 16 now, and I've literally never seen his face in person. They were married for 5 years, but he was cheating the whole time. When mom tried to divorce him, he made it hell. Didn't show up to court, not once. Not for the divorce, not for custody, not for child support, nothing. He went to jail 3 times because he kept dodging child support. He quit jobs on purpose and not tell anyone where he was working next. Real winner, right? My mom had to track him down over and over just to get what I was owed eventually. She just gave up because it was costing more in legal fees than it was worth. Fast forward to last year. This dude moves back to our area with his whole new family. The woman he cheated with, plus their kids. He's got a daughter who's 5 months younger than me, a son about a year and a half younger, and some other little ones I don't even know the ages of. His daughter ended up in one of my classes last year. She figured out who I was pretty quick and tried talking to me. I shut it down immediately. Told her straight up, we're not family. I don't want anything to do with her or anyone connected to him. She actually cried a little, which I felt bad about for like 2 seconds, but I didn't back down. This isn't my problem to fix. I thought that was the end of it. Wrong. This school year starts in August and suddenly she's in 4 of my classes instead of just 1. 4. I don't know if she requested it or if it was random, but either way, I knew I had a problem. One of those classes is with this teacher who does group projects constantly, like every other week. We're paired up for something. I went to that teacher before the first project and asked her to never pair me with this girl. The teacher looked confused. So, I explained the whole situation. My dad's the girl's dad. He abandoned me before I was born. Went to jail multiple times for dodging child support. And now his kid wants to play happy family. The teacher's face went from confused to shocked to understanding in about 10 seconds. She agreed. It was better to avoid putting us together to prevent any drama during projects. 2 separate times after that, the girl tried to force it. First time, she literally walked up during partner selection and said we should work together. The teacher immediately said no and assigned her someone else. Second time was a bigger group project and she tried to join my group. Teacher shut that down too. That's when she realized I'd talked to the teacher. She went home and told her parents, and they lost it. They called the school and demanded a meeting with me, my mom, and the principal. My mom went but refused to bring me. She told the principal that the first time I meet my so-called father shouldn't be when he's trying to yell at me for not wanting to work with his daughter. Ever since that meeting, his daughter and son stare at me constantly in the hallways. It's weird and uncomfortable, and it didn't stop there. The staring turned into whispers. Then the whispers turned into them suddenly appearing everywhere I went: library, cafeteria, even outside the school, like they were waiting for me on purpose. It wasn't violent or anything, just creepy, like they were studying me. Like they were trying to figure out how to approach me again. I ignored them at first. I've had 16 years of practice ignoring anything connected to that man. But the weirdest moment happened about 2 weeks into the school year. I walked into the cafeteria, saw them sitting with some friends, and the daughter, my dad's other daughter, leaned over and whispered something. Her friends turned to look at me all at once. I've never felt so intensely observed in my life. Later that same day, she cornered me outside the bathroom. Not touching me, not blocking me, just standing there like she timed everything perfectly. She said, "Why do you hate me?" I didn't do anything, and I swear, it took every ounce of willpower not to laugh. Hate her? I didn't even know her. But what I did know, what I had lived with my entire life, was that the man who raised her was the same man who abandoned me. And I wasn't going to pretend like we were siblings, just because she felt like playing family reunion. I told her, I don't hate you. I just don't want anything to do with him. That includes you. She looked genuinely hurt, which made me feel guilty for like 3 seconds before she said something that erased every bit of guilt instantly. He's not who you think he is. That line. That stupid, predictable, infuriating line. I laughed right in her face. She got upset and walked away, and I thought it was over. Spoiler, it wasn't. The next morning, I was called to the front office. Not the principal's office, worse, the guidance counselor's office. My stomach dropped immediately because there's only one reason a counselor pulls you in unexpectedly. Drama. I walked in and saw the counselor sitting with a folder that had my name on it. She gave me the soft, sympathetic look, and I wanted to walk right back out. She said, "So, your father and his wife came in again." I froze. "For what?" She sighed. "They're concerned. They feel you're being hostile toward your half-siblings." I laughed out loud. Couldn't stop myself. Hostile? I literally avoid them like they're radioactive. The counselor continued, "They said you refused to work with your sister, and they're worried about the emotional impact." My sister? I repeated. "She's not my sister. She's his kid." That's not the same thing. The counselor paused like she wasn't mentally prepared for that level of blunt honesty. I told her everything again: the abandonment, the jail time, the dodged child support, the harassment. She nodded slowly, realizing she'd just stepped into something way deeper than she expected. By the end of the meeting, she told me I wasn't required to interact with them at all and she'd inform the teachers again. Relief washed over me. Until that afternoon. Because that's when he showed up. I was walking out to the bus lane when I heard someone shout my name. My actual full name. Not the nickname I use. Not what teachers call me. My legal name. I froze because no one calls me that except doctors and the DMV. I turned around. And there he was. The man I'd never met. The one who skipped out on raising me. The one who was basically a ghost my whole life. Suddenly, he was standing 10 feet away from me like he had any right to even breathe my air. He looked older than I expected. Tired, rough, like life had beaten him up more than I ever could. His new wife stood behind him with their younger kids clinging to her shirt. He held up his hands like he expected me to bolt. "I'm your father," he said. The way he said it like I didn't already know. Like it was some big emotional reveal made my blood boil. "No," I said. "You're a guy who got my mom pregnant and ran." His face cracked. Like physically cracked. He looked like I'd slapped him. He tried to step closer and I stepped back immediately. "You don't get to do this," I said. "You don't get to show up after 16 years and pretend you get a conversation." He opened his mouth to say something, but his wife jumped in. "You're being rude," she snapped. "He's trying to fix things." I stared her dead in the eyes. "He should have fixed things 16 years ago." Then I walked away. One of his little sons said, "Dad, why is he mad?" And I swear that question hung in the air like smoke. People were watching. Teachers, students, staff. It became the talk of the school within an hour. The next day, the front office confirmed he wasn't allowed on school grounds anymore. Good. I thought the drama was finally done. Wrong again. 2 days later, his daughter stopped me in the hallway one last time. Tears in her eyes, frustrated, heartbroken, she said, "He's a good dad to me. I don't understand why he couldn't be one to you." And that one hit different. Not because it hurt me. Because I realized she was hurting too. Not because of me, but because she was watching the illusion of her perfect family fall apart. I didn't yell. I didn't snap. I didn't say anything cruel. I just said, "I hope he never treats you the way he treated me." She didn't respond. She just walked away wiping her eyes. Even now, they still stare sometimes. Not angry anymore, just confused, lost. Like they're trying to understand a puzzle that doesn't have all its pieces. I'm not mean to them. I'm not friendly either. I'm neutral, distant, safe because their father made his choices long before any of us were born. And I'm done paying for them. Story 2 On New Year's Eve, my uncle arrived unexpectedly and asked, "How's that $2.5 million trust fund I set up for you 5 years ago?" I stared in shock. "What trust fund? I've been working 3 jobs just to survive." My uncle's eyes burned with fury as he turned to my parents. Their faces went ghost white dot, and then he revealed who my real father was. Chapter 1 The knock that split the world in half. New Year's Eve always felt loud from the outside and quiet on the inside. While most people counted down champagne bubbles and fireworks, I was standing behind the counter of the downtown cafe, my 3rd shift of the day. Hands aching, eyes burning, pretending I wasn't exhausted. This was my life at 22, 3 jobs. No savings, no help, no celebrations, just survival. My mother always said, "If you want something, work for it. Don't expect handouts." My father, he barely spoke to me unless he needed something done. I thought that was normal. I thought every kid grew up like that. I didn't know yet that every word they'd ever told me was a lie. By the time I reached home, our small aging suburban house, the countdown on TV was already at -6 hours. Mom was on the couch scrolling through her phone. Dad was watching football reruns like always. Neither of them asked how my shift went. Neither of them noticed the burn on my wrist from the cafe steamer. Neither of them cared that I hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night for the past month. "Pick up your shoes," Dad muttered without looking away from the screen. That was the closest thing to hello I got. I went to my room, my tiny windowless basement room, and sat on the edge of the narrow bed, feeling the quiet suffocate me. Then, at 8:43 p.m., a sound broke the stillness. A knock, not the quick casual tap of a neighbor. A heavy deliberate knock like someone who never knocks unless it's important. I went upstairs. Before I could reach the door, Mom rushed forward, and when she looked through the peephole, her face drained of color. She swung the door open, but her voice trembled. William. What are you doing here?" William Hayes, my mother's younger brother. My uncle, a man I'd seen meeting. He saw the confusion. He saw the exhaustion. He saw the truth. Then he turned slow, deliberate toward my parents. and the rage that built behind his eyes was something I'd never seen directed at anyone before. "What did you do?" My mother's lips trembled. My father's hands clenched on the armrest. The house felt suddenly too small to hold what was about to explode. And then my uncle stepped into the living room, closed the door behind him, and said the sentence that would destroy everything I thought I knew about my life. "I think it's time Ethan knows who his real father is." The clock ticked past 8:45 p.m. The fireworks hadn't even begun yet, but my entire life had already blown apart. Chapter 2: The Midnight Confession. Silence, not the peaceful kind. The kind that squeezes your lungs, turns the air into glass, and makes every second sharper than the one before. My mom sank into the nearest chair, her hands trembling so badly she had to grip the armrest to steady herself. My dad, the man I'd called dad my entire life, stared straight ahead like someone had unplugged his thoughts. My uncle didn't sit. He stood in the center of the living room like a judge who had just walked into a courtroom. "Ethan," he said without looking away from my parents. "Sit down, you need to hear this." I sat. Not because I wanted to, because my knees didn't feel strong enough to keep me standing. My uncle's voice was calm. "I created a trust fund for you 5 years ago. $2.5 million for college, for life, for freedom." My throat tightened. Mom's eyes brimmed with tears. She refused to let fall. "I gave the paperwork to them," he continued. "I made it clear it was for you, not them. Not their expenses, not their debts." "You," Mom finally whispered. "William, please." He cut her off. The softness vanished. "Where is the money?" My father swallowed hard. His jaw trembled. It's gone." My uncle closed his eyes for a moment. Pain first, then anger. That dangerous quiet anger of a man who never forgot anything. "How?" he demanded. My mother broke. We needed it. Things were hard. Medical bills, mortgage, the business failing. "Your brother, he was drowning in debt." My uncle's head snapped toward her. "Don't you dare blame Michael for this." Michael? That name hit me like a punch. My father stiffened. My mother went white as the snow outside. I looked at them. "Who is Michael?" No one spoke. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. "Mom," I whispered. "Dad." My uncle stepped closer, kneeling in front of me. "So, we were eye to eye." His voice dropped to a whisper, gentle, heartbroken. "Ethan. Michael Hayes was my older brother." My breath caught. Was past tense. The room felt colder. "He died in a car accident the year you were born," my uncle continued. "And before he died, he told me something." My mother's face crumpled. My father looked like he was about to be sick. "What did he tell you?" I asked quietly. My uncle took a long, steady breath. "He told me he'd been seeing someone. A woman who was terrified and trapped in a marriage she couldn't escape. A woman who'd become pregnant with his child." My entire body froze. "That woman," he said softly, "was your mother." The words crashed into me like a tidal wave. I stared at Mom. She couldn't even look at me. Dad's eyes closed and a tear escaped down his cheek. My chest tightened. "So," I whispered, "he's not my father." Dad looked at me, eyes red. "I raised you. I fed you, I stayed." And my uncle held up a hand. "You lied to him." He snapped. "You kept the truth from him. And then you stole the money meant to give him the life his real father wanted him to have." Mom finally broke into sobs. "I didn't want you to grow up without a father, Ethan. I didn't want you to feel unwanted. And then William offered money and you took it." My uncle said sharply. "All of it, every dollar." I felt like someone had unplugged the floor beneath me. My entire life, who I was, who I loved, who I trusted, had cracked open in one night. The TV in the background played a countdown preview. 5 hours until the new year. But nothing about my life would ever be the same. My uncle put a hand on my shoulder. "Ethan, you deserved better. And now you're going to get it starting tonight." Chapter 3. The Will, the Lawyer, and the Lie. My uncle didn't give my parents time to recover. He went straight into action. "Get your coats," he said. "All 3 of you. We're going to my attorney's office." Dad stiffened. "It's almost 9:00 p.m. on New Year's Eve. He won't be there." My uncle gave him a cold, humorless smile. "Ethan, meet the man who's never met a locked door in his life." I didn't know what that meant until 15 minutes later, when we pulled up to a dark commercial building, and a man in a heavy coat was already waiting, holding a briefcase. "William," the man greeted my uncle. "Thought you'd call." This was his lawyer. At 9:15 p.m. on New Year's Eve. Not normal. The man turned to me. "You must be Ethan. I'm Anthony Graves. Your father, your biological father, trusted me with something." Mom made a small sound of panic in the back of her throat. My uncle shot her a warning look. We followed Anthony inside his office, lights flickering on as he disarmed the alarm. Thick carpet, dark with walls lined with file cabinets. He went straight to one drawer and pulled out a sealed envelope. My name was written on it, not printed, handwritten. in handwriting I didn't recognize. Anthony placed it gently on the table in front of me. This, he said, is a letter your father wrote before he died. He left instructions for it to be given to you on your 18th birthday. But only if your mother informed you of the truth. My chest tightened. She didn't, my uncle said quietly. So, I stepped in. My mother started crying again. Dad held his head in his hands. Anthony motioned for me to open it. My fingers trembled as I broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper folded twice. I unfolded it slowly. The handwriting was shaky but strong, careful, emotional. My son, if you are reading this, I am gone. But I need you to know that you were never a mistake. You were never unwanted. You were the greatest joy of my life. Even if I never got to hold you, I loved your mother. Even when she was trapped in a life of fear and control, I told her to protect you, no matter what it cost her. And I told my brother William to protect you too. Whatever he gives you, whatever he decides, trust him. He's the only one left who knows the truth. Live a life you are proud of. Love doesn't always look like what we expect. But I hope one day you understand why she hid you and why I couldn't stay. Michael Hayes, my vision blurred. I wasn't crying. Not really. But something heavy inside me finally cracked open. A father I never knew loved me enough to plan for me, to protect me, to leave me a future. My uncle's voice brought me back. Ethan, that trust fund was not the only thing Michael left for you. My head snapped up. Anthony opened the briefcase he'd been carrying and pulled out a stack of documents. This, he said carefully, is your father's will. Mom gasped. Dad made a strange choking noise. Anthony continued, your father left behind a modest estate, some investments, a pension, a property in his name, and some business assets. It isn't millions, but it's more than enough to set you up. But I frowned, that was decades ago. How he never dissolved it. Anthony explained. William kept it all intact, protected, untouched, waiting for you. My uncle nodded. Because that's what family does. And then he turned his glare on my parents. But you two thought you could hide the truth and steal his son's inheritance. My mother broke again. It wasn't like that. Yes? He snapped. It was exactly like that. You spent his trust fund. You stole his future. You lied to him his entire life. Dad whispered, barely audible. We were scared. We didn't want him taken away from us. My uncle slammed his hand on the table. You weren't scared. You were greedy. The room fell into a freezing silence. Finally, Anthony cleared his throat. Ethan, I need you to make a decision. I looked up. What decision? He slid a document toward me. Do you want to pursue legal action for the stolen trust fund? My heartbeat pounded. My parents went pale. My uncle's eyes fixed on mine, not telling me what to do. Just waiting. Ethan, Anthony said softly. You have every right to reclaim what your father left for you. But the choice is yours. The letter trembled in my hands. My life had changed in 1 hour, and now I had to choose what happened next. Chapter 4. The New Year's Reckoning. The drive home from the attorney's office was silent, not the normal kind of silence, but the heavy, suffocating kind where every unsaid word sits like lead on your chest. Mom stared out the window, wiping her face with shaking hands. Dad gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles were bone white. And my uncle, he watched them in the rearview mirror the way a judge watches a defendant. I held the letter from my real father against my chest. Every mile we drove felt like a countdown. When we reached the house, my uncle pushed open the front door like he owned it. In that moment, he did. He turned to my parents, they sat. I'd never seen them obey anyone like that. My uncle stayed standing, pacing slowly in front of them, controlled, calculating every step precise. You lied to him his entire life, he began. You weaponized his father's memory. You stole his trust fund. You used his fear, his loyalty, his work ethic, all to keep him trapped under your roof. Dad swallowed. We thought it was best. No, my uncle thundered. You thought it was convenient. He faced me. Ethan, before you make any decisions, you need to hear the full truth tonight. He pointed to Dad. Start talking. All of it, no more lies. My parents froze. Mom was trembling. Dad looked like he'd been punched in the throat. Dad began, voice cracking. We were struggling. Your mother was between jobs. My hours were cut. We were drowning in debt. You had student loans, Mom cried. Your school expenses, your books, your rent. I worked 3 jobs. I snapped. I paid for everything. They went quiet. My uncle folded his arms. Michael's trust fund was for Ethan's future, not for your emergencies. Dad looked down. We told ourselves we'd replace it. We told ourselves we deserved a break. We told ourselves he didn't need that money yet, and then we kept spending. Mom whispered. We messed up. We messed up so badly. We couldn't tell him after it was gone. It wasn't yours to take, my uncle said coldly. You stole his father's last gift to him. That was when Dad broke fully completely. His voice cracked like glass. I was jealous. The room froze. What? I whispered. Dad wiped his face with shaking hands. You were never mine. Not biologically. And I thought he choked on the words. I thought if he had a father who left him money, if he had a brother who cared, he wouldn't need me. I thought I'd lose him. My uncle's jaw clenched. You didn't lose him because of who his father was. You lost him because of who you chose to be. Mom grabbed Dad's hand. We were scared, Ethan. We were selfish. We knew if you found out the truth, you'd stop trusting us, and we couldn't handle that. I stared at them. These were the people I'd bled for, worked myself to exhaustion for, protected, defended. The betrayal hit differently when spoken aloud. Raw, ugly, final. My uncle stepped beside me. Ethan, he said quietly, you don't have to forgive them. Not tonight, not ever. But you do need to decide what comes next. He placed the envelopes on the table, one white, one black. He pointed to the white envelope. This one contains the paperwork to pursue the trust fund theft, both civil and criminal. If you choose it, I'll fund every dollar of the legal battle. Then he touched the black envelope. This one contains the forms to drop everything. No lawsuits, no investigations, no consequences, a clean slate. I stared at the two envelopes. White, black, justice, mercy. My uncle rested a hand on my shoulder. Tonight is the New Year's reckoning, he said softly. Not theirs, yours. What kind of man do you want to be when midnight hits? My parents stared at me with terrified eyes. Eyes of people who knew they were seconds away from losing the one person they assumed would always come home. I looked down at the letter in my hands. My father's handwriting, his hope, his trust. Live a life you are proud of. Trust William. Love doesn't always look like what we expect. My heart felt like it was tearing itself in half. I reached for one envelope. The room held its breath. Final chapter. The inheritance of truth. The envelope in my hand felt heavier than the house, the history, the lies. And every sleepless night combined. My parents sat frozen. Mom twisting her hands until her knuckles went white. Dad staring at the floor like he could fall straight through it. My uncle watched me, unreadable. I opened the envelope. Not the white one, not the black one, a third envelope. The yellow one my father had included with his last letter. The one I hadn't opened yet. My uncle's eyes widened slightly. He didn't even know what was inside. My hands shook as I tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper. My father's handwriting, older, shakier, but still his. Ethan, if you're reading this, your life has changed and you're probably hurting. So, let me tell you something I never got to say in person. The man who raises you is your father. The man who loves you is your father. The man who sacrifices for you is your father. My throat tightened. My uncle stepped closer, silent. I kept reading. But the man who hides truth from you. The man who steals your future. The man who lets you bleed while he feels nothing. He forfeits the right to call himself that you don't owe loyalty to a lie. Choose a future that protects the boy you used to be, and the man you're becoming. My father's words hit harder than any argument in that room. I folded the letter slowly and looked at my parents. For the first time, I didn't see them as mom and dad. I saw them as two people who had made choices. Choices that changed the entire course of my life. Choices they expected me to erase with forgiveness. I picked out the white envelope, the one for legal action. My mom gasped. Dad's shoulders collapsed. But I wasn't done. I also picked out the black envelope, the one for mercy. My uncle frowned. He didn't understand. I placed both envelopes on the table, then slid them toward my uncle. I'm not choosing either, I said quietly. My parents looked confused. My uncle tilted his head. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a third stack of papers, my own. I'm starting over, I said. Not through revenge, not through forgiveness, through separation. I handed my uncle a packet of documents, my new legal address, my new bank accounts, my new attorney's information, a restraining order draft unsigned for now, a financial audit I had ordered on my own. My uncle scanned through it and something softened in his eyes. Pride. Mom whispered, Ethan. Please. I looked at her. Truly looked at her. I spent my whole life trying to make you proud, I said. But you never cared about who I was. You cared about what I provided. Her lips trembled. Dad opened his mouth. But I held up a hand. This isn't punishment, I said. This is distance, space, healing. I turned to my uncle. You asked me what kind of man I want to be when midnight hits. I took a breath. A man who chooses truth. A man who chooses peace. A man who doesn't repeat the mistakes he was raised with. My uncle nodded slowly. That, he said, is the answer your father would have wanted. I walked to the front door. Every step felt like breaking a chain I didn't know I'd been carrying. Before stepping out, I looked back at my parents one last time. Dad was crying. Mom reached out a trembling hand. Ethan, please don't leave like this. I shook my head softly. Mom, Dad, I'm not leaving you. I'm leaving the version of you that hurt me if you ever want to find me again. Be better than the people you were in this room tonight. Then I stepped outside. The clock struck midnight. Fireworks exploded across the neighborhood. Gold, red, silver, lighting up the sky like the world was demanding renewal. My uncle walked beside me, placing a warm hand on my shoulder. So, he said with a faint smile. Where to next? I unfolded my father's letter, looked at the line I had memorized. Trust, William, I smiled, wherever the truth leads. We walked into the night. Fireworks behind us, a new life ahead of us. The past fading like smoke in the cold air, and for the first time in years, I felt free. Was this revenge perfectly justified, or should the storm have raged harder?